There are people you will never see in any trading group. No YouTube, no Facebook, no Telegram. They don't post winning trades, they don't run courses, they don't sell indicators. Yet they are still there, quiet, consistent, and they make money. They don't chase breaking news, they don't shout with the crowd. When the market turns chaotic, they stay still. When the whole community screams over a single wave, they calmly take a sip of tea. They are the strangest kind of traders I have ever met. They speak very little. They don't argue. They don't try to be right. But when they do speak, the room seems to slow down by one beat. I used to believe that success in trading meant knowing more than others, reading more, analyzing better, staying constantly updated. Every day needed a trade. Not trading felt like falling behind. I threw myself into that cycle like everyone else. The more I read, the more confused my mind became. The more I learned, the heavier my spirit felt. At some point, I no longer knew what I was searching for, only that I was exhausted. Then one day, I was introduced to a strange man. People said he was the last survivor of an old trading group. I searched his name on Google, nothing. On Facebook, nothing. Only a few short, distant messages. We met at an old cafe. No music, no Wi-Fi. He walked in calmly, his eyes deep and steady. No laptop, no phone in his hand. I asked him, "Do you still trade?" He smiled faintly. "I closed a trade yesterday, entered it 3 weeks ago." I froze. 3 weeks for a single trade? While I was jumping into the market dozens of times a day, changing strategies, chasing news, scrolling charts like an addict. I asked him, "Aren't you afraid of missing opportunities?" He answered slowly, as if talking about the weather. "I don't look for opportunities. I wait until they come looking for me." In that moment, I knew I was sitting in front of a completely different kind of person. He didn't need to win often. He didn't need to be better than anyone. All he needed was to remain standing longer than the rest. Before leaving, he said one last thing, a sentence I still remember to this day. "The louder the market becomes, the weaker people grow. A truly free person has nothing to prove to anyone." That day, I didn't learn a new indicator. I didn't write down any win rate formula, but I brought home something far more valuable: the silence of someone who understands the market and understands himself. He wasn't like any trader I had met before. No arguments, no colorful charts, no sophisticated jargon. Our conversation wasn't about entries or stop hunts. It was about stillness. He told me he trades only 2 or 3 times a month, some months not at all, and he still lives well, not just well, but light, free, and unburdened. I asked him, "Why don't you start a YouTube channel or write a blog? People could learn so much from you." He just smiled and said nothing. He gave a faint smile, barely a movement of the lips, and said, "Those who feel the need to talk a lot are usually still trying to prove something. I passed that stage a long time ago." Now the only thing he wanted to protect was the calm inside himself. I paused for a moment. In my mind, images of famous traders still lingered, people live streaming every day, analyzing 5 currency pairs, 3 coins, setting targets as if they were passing judgment on the market's fate. But sitting in front of me was someone who didn't need others to know he was right. He didn't need agreement. He didn't need validation. All he needed was to remain unshaken. He said, "I've blown up twice, the first time out of ignorance, the second time out of arrogance." I asked, "So how did you come back?" He looked at me. His eyes were deep, as if he were looking straight through me and back into his own past. He said, "I didn't try to recover. I just sat still and asked myself one question: who am I really trying to become? A good trader? A person who makes a lot of money? Or someone admired by others?" And I realized, he continued, all those goals only disturbed my mind. So I let them all go. From that point on, he kept only one thing: keeping his inner state steady no matter how the market moved. I fell silent. There were no more questions to ask, because I understood he wasn't teaching me anything. He was simply living the way I had been searching for all along. A way of living that wasn't rushed, wasn't loud, didn't require much, but was deeply real. Before we parted, he handed me a small piece of paper. On it was only one sentence: "You don't need to predict the top or the bottom. Just stay still when others lose control." I still keep that piece of paper to this day. Whenever the market shakes violently, whenever my hand trembles with the urge to place a revenge trade, I take it out, read it again, and take a deep breath. He probably never knew that a conversation that seemed so insignificant would completely change the way I exist in the market. He didn't give me a new technique. He didn't offer a copy trading account. But he left me with the most important lesson of all. A good trader is not the one who wins the most, it's the one who manages to keep himself intact the longest. After that meeting, I went home, but my mind stayed behind in that old cafe. The smell of aged wood, the soft clink of a spoon against a ceramic cup, and his eyes, deep like the sea, kept replaying in my head. That night, for the first time in months, I opened the charts and placed no trade. I just watched for a long time, not to find an entry, but to listen to what the market was saying. And something strange happened. For the first time, the market no longer felt seductive. No drama, no perfect setup, no pull from greed. Only slow breathing, quiet contractions, as if the market were telling me something ancient, something I had never been willing to hear before. I sat there for nearly an hour, didn't touch the mouse, didn't turn on the news, and finally, I shut the screen down.
He said only one short sentence. "Go home. Make yourself a pot of tea." I wasn't sure I understood it at the time, but it was the first moment I felt at peace, even though I hadn't won a single trade. In the days that followed, my pace slowed down. In the mornings, I didn't open the charts. I didn't scroll through the news. I didn't look for setups. I wrote. I wrote what I was feeling. I wrote why I wanted to trade. I wrote my state of mind before each session. And then I realized something. Trading isn't about clicking orders. It's closer to a form of moving meditation. You walk through the market with awareness. The quieter you become, the more the market is willing to speak. The slower you move, the clearer what once felt blurred begins to appear. And the strangest part was this. When you no longer need money from the market begins to give it to you. A week passed. I didn't place a single trade. The account didn't grow, but the unease inside me faded noticeably. Then one morning, a familiar setup appeared. Everything aligned. I entered the trade, no excitement, no tension, just a calm click. I stood up, made tea. The trade won. But what truly lightened me wasn't the profit. It was the fact that for the first time in a long while, I won without losing myself. I sent him a short message. "I understand now." He didn't reply, and I knew he didn't need to. He had already said enough through his silence. A year later, I met him again. The same old cafe, not by chance. I came to say thank you. He was still sitting at the familiar table by the window, where sunlight filtered softly through the leaves. The same white shirt, the same small cup of tea. And his gaze, no longer just observing, but understanding. He looked at me and smiled gently. "This time, you've learned how to sit still, haven't you?" I nodded, because it was true. I was less rushed, less eager to prove myself, less obsessed with analyzing everything to exhaustion. Some nights I didn't open the charts. I just wrote. I just listened. I just took a deep breath to remind myself that I was still floating in heavy waves without being pulled under. I said to him, "The things you never taught me are the things I learned the most." He looked out the window, took a small sip of tea, and said slowly, "The secret isn't in the chart, it's in the space between two candles. Whoever is patient enough to remain in that space is the one who survives." I asked him once more, "So you don't pass this on to anyone?" He shook his head very gently. "Those who still need to be taught are not ready yet, and those who are ready no longer need me." I smiled, a quiet smile, a sad one but honest, because I suddenly realized that there was a time when I too needed someone to talk a lot, to speak on behalf of my fear, to speak for the confusion I didn't dare admit. But in the end, what stayed with me the longest wasn't any advice he gave, but his silence. Before I stood up to leave, he reached into his jacket, took out a small piece of paper, neatly folded, and placed it on the table. No explanation, no instructions, just one sentence. "Don't try to create a beautiful trade. Live decently first." I didn't open that piece of paper right away. Only later that night when I was alone did I unfold it. Inside, there was just one short line. "Sometimes, staying out of the market is the most profitable decision of your life." From that day on, I never saw him again. The phone number no longer worked. The old cafe changed owners. No one knew where he went, and perhaps he never intended to be found. But every time I sit front of the chart, watching price flow by, when emotions begin to rise, when my hand wants to act too quickly, I remember his eyes and his silence, like a small bell pulling me back to myself. After that final meeting, the way I observed the market changed completely. It was no longer a game of price, it became a game of people. Slowly, one thing became very clear to me. The loudest ones disappear the fastest. Those who talk the most often react the hardest and break the earliest. Those who always seem to know everything quietly fade away after a few losing streaks. And the ones whose names I had never heard, who never showed off their accounts, who never argued about right or wrong, they were still there, quietly, slowly, moving forward little by little. Some of them place only one trade a month, yet their accounts grow steadily over the years. Some stay loyal to a single method for an entire decade, not chasing trends, not changing strategies just because emotions shift. They don't stand out, they're not called masters, but they are still here. And then I understood, some victories don't need noise. Some successes belong only to those who are calm enough to hold on to them for a long time. From that point on, the world of traders in my mind split into two types. One type tries to become an expert in the eyes of the crowd. They create a lot of noise. The other trades for themselves. They create silence. And that silence produces the rarest thing in trading, sustainability. They think very differently. And that is why I want to share with you 5 things that quiet traders tend to have, things that most people never even touch.
The first thing I noticed about quiet traders is that they trade very little. But every time they enter a trade, it carries weight. They don't click out of boredom. They don't trade just to kill time. They don't act simply because they can't endure silence. They may open the chart every day, watch it for a long time, and then close it without doing anything at all. They act only when the mind is calm, the scenario is clear, and the risk stays within what they can accept. To them, a trade is not a gamble. It is a deliberate decision. The second thing, they are not dependent on indicators. They don't need a screen full of colors to feel that they are right. They read the market the way one reads a flowing river. Inexperienced traders often need signals to light up just to feel reassured. Quiet traders don't. They slowly remove everything unnecessary. They watch a candle the way one listens to a heartbeat. They read price structure like a story told without words. And in that simplicity, they see things most people miss because they are too busy analyzing. The third thing, they live ordinary lives. They don't live for trading. They simply live, and trading is only a small part of that life, not the whole thing. They sleep on time. They eat proper meals. They read. They move their bodies. They are not addicted to charts. They don't stay up at night just because of a vague intuition. They believe this: to trade properly, you must first live properly. The fourth thing, they stay away from crowds and away from the stage. They don't need applause. They don't need to belong to any group. They don't need students, and they don't need to be called a teacher, because they understand one thing very clearly. Every time the ego grows in front of a crowd, clarity steps back. And in trading, stepping back just once can already be costly. The fifth thing, they are not chasing fast wealth. They are chasing a different goal, not disappearing. Quiet traders don't need spectacular returns. They only need to avoid big losses, to not lose money to impatience, to not be dragged by emotion when the market starts shaking hard. They understand a very simple truth that few people are calm enough to accept. The one who remains is the one who wins. No need for huge victories. Just staying in the game already puts you far ahead of most people who once entered. There was a time when I wanted to be the best, the most correct, the fastest. But after losses, after sleepless nights, after collapses no one saw, I only wanted to become the most stable. No need to say much, no need to prove anything, just not getting swept away. And people like that, when they speak, no one applauds. People fall silent and listen. We grow up in a society that worships noise. Whoever speaks louder, appears more often, looks more confident, is considered better. The market is the same. The loudest traders are often the most listened to. But being listened to doesn't mean being right. After many years, I came to understand this. Success in trading lies not in complex techniques, nor in profit tables. It lies in a very simple question. After everything, what do you have left? After a winning streak, do you have an inflated ego or a clear mind? After a crash, do you have anger or a quiet question? What did I learn from this? Quiet traders don't measure success by money. They measure it by inner calm. If you make 10% today but can't sleep at night, tomorrow you may give that 10% back, along with a few scars in your mind. But if today you didn't trade at all and still feel at peace, that might be the most successful day of your week. I began to ask myself again, what am I really looking for in this market? Money? Recognition? Or just the feeling of winning to fill some emptiness inside? The answer, whatever it is, will decide how you move forward. And I chose a different path, not fast, not loud, and not needing anyone to see it. Just walking the right way. All it takes is that every step you make is a step where you don't lose yourself. That is enough. You may see quiet people as dull, unremarkable, unimpressive, but often that very plainness is what saves them from the deepest falls, because the brighter something shines, the easier it burns. The more complex it becomes, the more fragile it is, and the simpler it is, the longer it lasts. I'm telling you all of this not to tell you to be silent, but to help you understand this. Silence is also a form of strength. There are traders who don't need to speak much because they've already proven enough to themselves.
If you feel lost in the market right now, if you're tired of too much advice, too many indicators, too many overlapping signals, try this once. Turn everything off. Shut the screen. Step out onto a balcony and breathe. You'll realize it's not the market that's exhausting you. It's you asking too much from a place that never promised you anything. Trading owes you nothing. It doesn't promise you a dream. It simply stands there, quietly, waiting to see whether you're calm enough to walk through it without dropping yourself along the way. Maybe you haven't made much money yet. Maybe you're still learning. But if you've begun to listen more carefully, to speak less, and to understand yourself more clearly, then you've already gone farther than many people ever will. And if this video touches something inside you, perhaps you belong to that quiet kind of people, those who rise without noise but walk with steady steps. No one needs to know. When you move with stability. You may not remember everything I've said, but if you take just one thing with you after this, I hope it's this. You don't need to speak much to be trustworthy. You only need to hold yourself together to be worthy of respect. You don't need to show up every day. You don't need to analyze the market so others can applaud you. You don't need to be better than anyone, more right than anyone, or faster than anyone. Because the more expectations you carry, the easier it is to lose clarity. Success in trading is not about winning every trade. It's about being able to watch the market shake violently and still remain calm enough to do nothing. Because you understand this. Acting at the right moment matters more than acting all the time. I didn't make this video to teach you how to get rich. I don't have a formula for success, and I don't promise that after this you'll suddenly trade better. I'm only sharing a perspective, born from experience, from mistakes, and from years of choosing silence so I could live more carefully, more slowly, and more steadily. If you're still here at this point, maybe you're not like the crowd. Maybe you're walking a path that isn't flashy, isn't loud, but is clear and real. If you're on that path, I invite you to stay. Subscribe to Trading Psychology, not for the algorithm, not for the view count, but so you don't drift away from a place where you once found a little calm. Because sometimes one quiet reminder at the right moment is enough to help you hold yourself together a little longer. If you have a story, an experience, or even just a single thought, leave it below. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to stand out. It only needs to be honest. Because I believe this. Anyone who dares to write down what they've been carrying in silence is already beginning to become themselves. Me, someone who no longer tries to be better than the world, only tries to make sure that my inner calm is not stolen by the market.